Jessica thought survival ended after the battlefield. She was wrong. The real war was inside her luxury penthouse, where love became control and silence became a prison. One brutal Thanksgiving changed everything and taught her that being broken does to mean being defeated. Help us keep telling stories of strength and justice. One like, one share. Thanks for watching.
Thanksgiving was supposed to be perfect. Golden turkey, a loving home, a devoted husband. Behind closed penthouse doors, Jessica hid the truth. Bruises. That night, her husband arrived with a pregnant mistress. He didn't just break her heart, he shattered her leg right at the dinner table. But he made one fatal mistake. Jessica's father, a battle-hardened Marine, had just walked through the front door. Stick with me, because what's coming is pure, unfiltered justice. It will make you scream, cry, and believe in goodness again. If you love a story of ultimate revenge, hit that like button, leave a comment, share this with someone who needs strength, and subscribe for more gripping tales. That Manhattan penthouse felt less like a home and more like a museum, cold, expensive, and completely devoid of life. Jessica stood by the kitchen island, hands trembling as she basted the turkey for the fourth time. The scent of rosemary and vanilla candles hung heavy. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass, Central Park looked like a perfect postcard. Below, happy families were gathering, laughing, and making memories. Inside, Jessica was utterly alone. She checked her phone. 4:30 p.m. Marcus promised to be home by 3. She called him 6 times, straight to voicemail. 2-year-old Lily sat in her playpen, stacking blocks and humming. At least someone was happy. Jessica touched her own stomach, 7 months pregnant with their son. She should have been glowing. Instead, she felt like she was drowning in a gilded cage. The Cartier bracelet on her wrist caught the light, a fancy gift from Marcus just last month. She shifted it to hide the bruise beneath. 5 days old, purple, yellow, and green. "I am just clumsy," she whispered to herself. The lie tasted like bile. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. "He is going to hurt you tonight. Leave now." Her finger hovered over delete. This was the 3rd message this week. She should tell Marcus. She should call the police. But her gut, that raw survival instinct, insisted these were warnings. It was the same instinct that kept her alive in Fallujah when her convoy was under fire. She deleted the text anyway. She checked the locks again. The apartment felt suffocating. She walked to the mantel, staring at the photos like evidence in a trial. Her wedding day, Marcus in his tuxedo. That smile that made CEOs write blank checks. Their honeymoon, Lily's birth, and one older photo hidden behind the rest. Jessica in combat gear outside Fallujah with 3 colleagues who laughed that morning and died that afternoon. An IED had torn their vehicle apart. She survived, but barely. The nightmares and panic attacks followed. She felt like she had used up all her luck. Then she met Marcus Hartford, charming, successful, stable. Everything the war had stolen. He promised her safety. He promised security and a family. She believed him because she needed to. 5 years later, she was still trying to convince herself she hadn't made a terrible mistake. The doorbell rang. Jessica froze. Marcus had a key. He never rang the bell. She checked the camera. A man in marine dress blues stood there, holding groceries and flowers. Silver hair, short crop, eyes that had seen too much. Her father. Colonel Frank Bishop, retired Marine. 3 tours in Vietnam, 2 in Iraq, Silver Star recipient. Also a functioning alcoholic who showed up to her wedding drunk, calling Marcus a psychopath behind a mask. They had not spoken in 8 years. Her hand shook on the knob. She wanted to hide, but Lily was already running to the door. She opened it. Frank's eyes met hers, decades of regret packed into one look. "Hi, sweetheart," he said softly. "I know you said no, but it is Thanksgiving. Lily deserves to know her grandfather." Before she could answer, Lily squeezed past her legs. "Grandpa!" The little girl threw her arms up, and Frank's tough exterior shattered. He set the bags down and scooped her up, tears streaming down his face. "Hey there, princess," he whispered. "Look at how big you got." Jessica's throat tightened. "Family is family, even when it is broken. You cannot just show up here," Jessica said, though her heart was not in it. Frank set Lily down and pulled a coin from his pocket. An AA chip, 14 months sober. "I am not the man who ruined your wedding anymore," he said. "I got real help. I am trying, Jess." "You told my husband he had dead eyes at the altar," she said. "I was drunk," Frank admitted. "But I was also right." Before she could speak, her phone rang. "FaceTime from Marcus," she answered, tilting the screen so Marcus could see Frank for a split second. Marcus's perfect smile faltered. His eyes went cold. Then the charm clicked back on like a light switch. "Colonel Bishop." "What a surprise," Marcus said, his voice smooth as whiskey. "I wish I could welcome you, but I am stuck at a client emergency. I will be home by 8, I promise." He hung up. Frank's jaw tightened. That man is lying. "I interrogated terrorist, Jessica. I know a liar when I see one. You do not know him, she said, her voice shaking. He provides everything. Frank's eyes dropped to her wrist where the bracelet had shifted to show the edge of a bruise. Jessica. She yanked her sleeve down. I bumped into the counter. It is nothing. Drop it. Lily tugged Frank's pants. Grandpa, stay for turkey. Frank looked at Jessica, asking permission. She should say no. She should protect the peace she had fought for. But the apartment was so empty, and the thought of being alone with a toddler while Marcus worked late made her want to scream. Fine, she said. But if Marcus gets uncomfortable, I will leave. Frank promised on his honor. Jessica almost laughed. Frank was a Marine through and through. He followed orders, but he always interpreted them his own way. She let him in. What else could she do? The turkey was cooling, and Lily was already chatting away to her grandfather. Somewhere in the back of her mind, that survival instinct was whispering. When that stranger texted that Marcus would hurt her tonight, having a retired Marine colonel in the house did not seem like the worst idea. She just did not know yet how right that instinct would prove to be. Frank took the groceries to the kitchen, while Lily clung to his leg, telling him about all her toys. Jessica watched, feeling something crack inside her, a reminder of what real family felt like, without the need for Instagram perfection. You did not have to bring anything, Jessica said, unpacking fresh cranberries and cider. Cannot show up empty-handed, Frank replied. Your mother would haunt me. The mention of her mother hung in the air like smoke. Susan Bishop had died 10 years ago in a car accident, or so she was told. It was a lie Jessica had believed because sometimes lies are easier to handle than the truth. Frank rolled up his sleeves, showing old tattoos Jessica remembered from childhood. An eagle, globe, and anchor. Coordinates of places he had served. His scarred hands, still steady, started peeling potatoes with professional speed. You do not have to help, Jessica said. Marines do not sit idle, Frank said. Plus, you are 7 months pregnant and limping. When did you hurt your leg? I did not. You are favoring your right side. I have seen enough combat injuries to know pain when I see it. Jessica's defenses began to crumble. It is nothing. Just pregnancy makes you clumsy. Frank did not say a word, but his jaw set in a hard line. Jessica knew that look. It was the same one he had worn when she was 16. Lily played nearby, building towers and knocking them down. Each crash brought joyful giggles. She looks just like you did, Frank said softly. Same stubborn chin. She has Marcus's eyes, Jessica replied. Her defensive reflex was so sharp she did not even think. She has your spirit, Frank countered. That is what counts. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Running late, maybe 8:30. Order something if you are hungry. She stared at the screen, feeling that familiar mix of disappointment and relief. Part of her hoped this holiday would be different. The rest knew hoping for change from Marcus was like waiting for rain in a drought. Technically possible, but rarely happens. He is not coming, is he? Frank asked, reading her face. He said 8:30, which means 9, maybe 10. Never. Dad, stop. I am just saying. You have been here 45 minutes. You do not get to judge my marriage. Frank sat the peeler in hand. I judged it 8 years ago at your wedding, when I saw how he watched you. Like you were a trophy he bought. You were drunk. Drunk does not mean wrong. Before she could answer, her phone rang. Marcus wanted a video call. She answered, forcing a bright tone. Hey, how is the client emergency? His face filled the screen. His office looked sharp dark wood, leather chairs, the Hartford security logo on the wall, everything built to project power. It is a nightmare, he said, running a hand through perfect hair. The Pentagon is breathing down my neck about this software. But I am thinking of you. How is dinner prep? Good. Dad is helping. Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. That is nice. He saw Frank in the background, chopping vegetables. The two men locked eyes. A silent war played out across the screen. Give the colonel my best, Marcus said. His smile did not reach his eyes. I will be home as soon as I can. Love you. The screen went dark. He is not coming, Frank repeated. You do not know that. Jessica, please. Dad, let us just have a nice dinner. Can we do that without you analyzing my life? Frank studied her, then nodded. Yeah, sweetheart, we can do that. They cooked together, falling into the rhythm of 1,000 meals shared before everything fell apart. Frank told stories about the Marines, edited to make Lily laugh. Jessica felt the tension in her shoulders finally ease. By 6, the table was set. China she had only used twice. Fine china, cloth napkins, a perfect turkey centerpiece like a magazine spread, a flawless Thanksgiving. Jessica snapped a photo but stopped. Why bother? Her followers did not need to see this fake life. They sat down. Lily made a mess with her potatoes. Frank focused on the meal with his usual intensity. Jessica sat at the head of the table where Marcus should have been. His absence hit her like a punch. This is nice, Frank said softly. Just us. Jessica nodded, her throat tight. I am sorry, Frank continued. For the booze, for your mother, for failing you. Dad, listen, I have been working with my sponsor for 14 months, doing the steps, making amends, and the biggest one is you. Tears burned her eyes. You do not have to. I do. You deserve better. A father who was sober, who protected you instead of being a burden. I am so sorry, Jessica. She reached out, gripping his worn hand. I forgave you years ago. Then why have we not spoken in 8 years? Because forgiveness does not mean I was not hurt, or that I lack boundaries now. Frank nodded. That is fair. Totally fair. They held hands until the elevator pinged. Jessica's heart hammered. She pulled her hand away, feeling self-conscious. Estranged father, dinner for 3, one empty chair. The doors slid open. Marcus Hartford stepped out in a sharp charcoal suit. His smile was warm, practiced. Behind him, in a dress so red it demanded every ounce of attention, stood Vanessa Cole. Jessica's blood ran cold. Sorry I am late, babe, Marcus said, acting like bringing a date was normal. This is Vanessa, my assistant. She had nowhere else to go, so I could not leave her behind. You do not mind, right? Jessica's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She stared at the woman, mid-20s, stunning, wearing a diamond bracelet Jessica had never seen but knew cost a fortune. Frank stood slowly. His old Marine posture made him look dangerous. His eyes darted between them, reading the signals of an affair hiding in plain sight. Nice to meet you, Vanessa, Frank said firmly. I am Frank Bishop, her father. You work closely with Marcus? Very closely, Vanessa replied, touching his arm. We spend so much time together, business trips to Singapore, Dubai. I do not know what I would do without him. The words hit like grenades. Jessica found her voice. You brought your assistant to our Thanksgiving dinner? She had nowhere else to go, Marcus repeated, acting like Jessica was the problem. It is charity. He strode to the table. Vanessa followed. They sat close, Marcus pulling out her chair like they were on a date. Jessica stood frozen. This was not a hidden affair, it was a public display. Marcus did not even care. Frank touched her elbow. You okay? She was not, but she nodded. She moved to the table, serving food like a robot as her world tilted. Then Marcus's phone lit up. A text from V. Cannot wait to tell her about our baby tonight. Vanessa was sitting right there, texting him. Jessica's vision blurred. The room shrank until all she saw were those words and a mocking heart emoji. You are pregnant? She whispered. Vanessa smiled, cold, confident, victorious. 12 weeks, she said. We were going to tell you after dessert, but since you saw the text, time stopped. Jessica felt her own heartbeat, felt her own baby kick, sensing the danger. She saw Lily's confused face. Something snapped. She grabbed her wine glass and hurled it at Vanessa. The next few seconds would change everything. Red wine dripped down Vanessa's face, ruining her dress. Her surprise was real for a split second. Then her expression turned predatory. Her hand flew to her phone, already recording. Did you see that? Vanessa yelled, loud enough for the phone to catch. She attacked me. This woman is crazy. Marcus moved fast. The charming CEO mask dropped. His hand locked around Jessica's wrist, the same wrist with a fading bruise. Pain shot up her arm like lightning. She screamed, trying to pull away, but his grip was iron. You embarrassed me, Marcus hissed, his mask completely gone. In front of a guest, in front of your father. How dare you? He shoved her hard. Jessica stumbled, her pregnant belly throwing off her balance. She hit the edge of the dining table before crashing to the marble floor. Her leg twisted with a sick crunch. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Silence filled the room. Then, Lily began screaming. Jessica tried to crawl, to get to her daughter. White-hot agony exploded in her leg. My leg, she gasped. Marcus, the baby. She looked up, desperate for a shred of humanity. Instead, Marcus stood over her, straightening his jacket, face blank. Then the air shifted. Frank moved with lethal combat precision. One moment he was across the room. The next, he had Marcus pinned face down on the table, an arm twisted behind his back in a veteran's restraint. 3 seconds. That is all it took. You just assaulted a pregnant woman. Frank's voice was deathly calm. In front of a witness. In front of your daughter. He attacked Marcus, Vanessa shrieked. Her phone was angled to make Frank look like the aggressor. You all saw it. The drunk father attacked him. Frank's free hand went to his pocket. I have been recording since you walked in, every word, every move. Marcus laughed, even pinned down. New York is a 2-party consent state, old man. Think those recordings work in court? You think a jarhead understands the law better than my high-priced legal team? Don't move your leg, Frank. I have you exactly where I want you. I am calling the police, you pathetic drunk. Marcus's voice turned ice cold. Think you are the hero? I own this city. My company makes the software the police use. Hartford Security runs the whole 911 system. They are on my payroll. I donate $50,000 to them every year. And your daughter? Check the prenup. She is mine. This house is mine. Every cent is mine. Each word hit like a hammer. Jessica lay on the freezing marble, her legs throbbing, her unborn baby kicking in distress. She listened, paralyzed, as her husband detailed exactly how he had trapped her. "You cannot help her," Marcus sneered, that sick smile spreading wide. "No one can. She belongs to me, and she will do exactly as I say." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. "Daddy!" Lily's terrified scream cut through the air. "Daddy, Mama is bleeding!" Jessica looked down. Blood, not from her leg, but lower. The fall, the trauma, oh God! "The baby. Please," she whispered, "just save the baby." Two police officers walked in, clearly close with Marcus. They shook hands like old friends. Frank finally released Marcus, who immediately smoothed his suit, instantly shifting into his public persona. "Officers, thank God you are here," Marcus said, voice dripping with fake concern. "My wife is having a psychotic break. She attacked my colleague, and when I tried to stop her, she fell. Her father, who has a history of alcohol abuse, then assaulted me." He held out his phone, showing them Vanessa's edited video, which conveniently showed only the wine toss, cutting out everything else. "Sir, step outside," one officer told Frank. "She needs a hospital. Her leg is shattered," Frank shouted. "I already called a private ambulance," Marcus replied smoothly. "She is going to Lenox Hill, our family hospital. I will ride with her and ensure she gets the care." As Frank was dragged away, he locked eyes with Jessica, silently promising he would not leave her. Paramedics arrived with a stretcher, moving with cold, professional efficiency, loading Jessica as she fought to stay quiet through the agony. Marcus hopped into the ambulance, playing the doting husband for the witnesses. As the door clicked shut, he leaned close to her ear, his voice a lethal whisper. "You stupid woman. You should have just smiled and ate your dinner. Now, you are going to lose everything." The door slammed. Through the tiny window, Jessica watched her penthouse fade into the distance. She saw Frank being held back by police and Vanessa standing at the door, holding Lily, waving goodbye just like a mother seeing off a house guest. In that moment, the truth hit Jessica with brutal clarity. This was not just an affair. This was a plan. A cold, calculated trap she had walked into without noticing. As the ambulance turned the corner, her old life vanished. Lenox Hill Hospital emergency room was a nightmare of beeping machines, rushing staff, and the sharp, clinical smell of antiseptic. Jessica lay on a gurney, her leg braced in a temporary splint. Every beat of her heart sent a fresh shock of pain through her. "Mrs. Hartford?" A doctor leaned over her. Her badge said Dr. Rachel Stevens. She had kind, tired eyes. "I need to check your leg. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your pain?" 9, Jessica gasped. "Maybe 10. And the baby, please?" "Check my baby." Dr. Stevens moved gently. "The fetal monitor shows a strong heartbeat. But this leg, you have a severe fracture. You need surgery within 6 hours. That is your deadline. Wait any longer and your leg is gone." Jessica felt a surge of hope. "Do it. Please operate." Dr. Stevens looked away, clearly pained. "I need your medical power of attorney." "That is me. I consent. According to your records, your husband holds the power of attorney." "He is." Stevens glanced toward the lobby where Marcus was laughing with the hospital administrator. "He is refusing the surgery." Jessica felt the world tilt. "No, I want it. My leg, Mr. Hartford is citing anesthesia risks to your baby. He demands conservative care instead, casting an elevation." "That is not his choice." Jessica tried to sit up, but agony sliced through her. "Doctor, he is doing this. He pushed me. He broke my leg, and now he is trapping me here." Stevens watched her with pity. "Mrs. Hartford, I believe you. But legally, your husband has the final word." "That is not fair." "That is not." Jessica collapsed into heavy, jagged sobs. Mark entered, flanked by 2 lawyers in sharp, tailored suits. The hospital administrator trailed behind, looking terrified. "Sweetheart," Marcus said, his voice smooth, but his eyes were cold as ice. "You are not thinking clearly. This surgery is dangerous for our son. We have to put our baby first." "My leg," Jessica whispered. "Marcus, please, it will heal wrong. I will never walk the same." "Dr. Stevens," Marcus said, completely ignoring his wife. "My wife has a history of severe post-traumatic stress from her time as a war correspondent. Diagnosed in 2013. She is in no state to make medical decisions." A lawyer stepped forward with a stack of papers. "We are requesting a psychiatric evaluation before any surgery." "No," Jessica breathed. "Please, don't." But a nurse appeared with a clipboard. Marcus signed the forms with a flourish, then shoved a pen into Jessica's shaking hand. "Just sign, Jessica. It is for your own good." The pain was blinding, so she signed, too broken to resist. The pain was consuming her, and she was terrified for her baby. 30 minutes later, a psychiatrist arrived. Dr. Philip Brennan. He looked like a man paid well to lead witnesses. "Mrs. Hartford, I understand you were in Iraq and Afghanistan from 2007 to 2012? Jessica nodded, sensing the trap. "And you were diagnosed with PTSD in 2013? "Yes, but I have been managing it. With therapy and medicine when I need it. I am fine." Have you ever considered suicide? The question hit like a physical blow. That was years ago after my unit was hit by a roadside bomb. Friends died. I had guilt, but I got help. So you have considered suicide. Are you on medication? Prenatal vitamins, maybe Xanax for panic, but rarely. How often? Twice a month. So you are using benzodiazepines while pregnant? Every answer was a weapon. Every honest response was being twisted into proof of instability. Jessica watched her own life used against her, powerless to stop it. Dr. Brennan's diagnosis was instant. Given the acute stress, documented PTSD, suicidal history, medication, and tonight's violent outburst, I am recommending 72-hour psychiatric observation. Violent outburst? Jessica's voice cracked. I threw wine at the woman sleeping with my husband who is carrying his child. That is not mental illness. That is a normal reaction to— Your elevated state confirms my assessment, Brennan said, his voice flat. This is for your own safety. Dr. Stevens, please. Jessica begged the doctor. Do not let them do this. Stevens looked truly pained. I am sorry. Psychiatry overrides orthopedics here. I have no authority. They moved Jessica to the psych wing. Her leg was still screaming in agony. The ward had safety glass, padded walls, and the hollow, terrifying silence of heavily sedated patients. Through her window, Jessica saw the parking lot. She watched Marcus buckle Lily into his car. Her daughter was crying, reaching back. Mama, Mama! Marcus saw Jessica watching. He smiled a cold, real smile, then made Lily wave. Vanessa appeared, sliding into the seat with terrifying ease. Playing house, playing family with Jessica's own daughter. Jessica screamed and pounded on the safety glass until an orderly appeared. Mrs. Hartford, calm down or we will sedate you. She kept screaming, slamming her fists against the glass. The injection came fast. The world tilted, colors smearing into gray. Jessica's last thought was of Lily, terrified and confused, vanishing as the car pulled away. When she woke 18 hours later, she was strapped to the bed. Her phone sat on the table, taunting her close enough to see too far to grab. The screen lit up with notifications. Emergency hearing scheduled. Diane Morrison asking where she was. Judge ruled in Marcus's favor. Marcus texted. Lily is asking for mommy. I told her you are too sick. Hope you get better. Jessica closed her eyes and finally understood. She had lost everything. Her daughter. Her freedom. Her life. And the man who destroyed her was likely tucking Lily into bed, playing the devoted father while his mistress watched. The American dream, a perfect family built on the ruins of the life he had systematically destroyed. Frank Bishop sat in a Queens motel that reeked of failure. It was cheap, cash only, all he could afford on his pension. His laptop glowed, sending emails to old Marine contacts and analysts he knew in Baghdad. He was hunting info on Hartford security systems. The replies came back fast, terse, and terrified. Frank, that company is untouchable. Above my pay grade. Whatever you are digging into, drop it. These people have deep reach. I value my pension too much to help. Sorry, brother. Frank stared at the screen, feeling every one of his 62 years. His daughter was trapped in a ward, and he was powerless. His phone buzzed unknown number. Colonel Bishop, a familiar voice. Agent Mitchell, we worked together in Iraq. Meet me in 1 hour behind St. Patrick's Cathedral. The line went dead. Frank grabbed his jacket and his concealed carry pistol. Illegal in New York, sure, but he stopped caring about laws years ago. If Marcus owned the police, Frank needed to be ready. The cathedral lot was empty at midnight. Agent Mitchell emerged from the shadows, looking older and far more cautious. This is a suicide mission, Frank. You know that. My daughter's life is on the line. That beats everything. Mitchell lit a shaky cigarette. Hartford Security Systems isn't just a defense contractor. It is a front. Marcus sells surveillance tech to sanctioned regimes: Iran, North Korea, Syria. Tech that tracks dissidents and monitors leaders. People die because of what he sells. Why is Teehee in prison? His father, Richard Hartford, is ex-CIA and connected to everyone who matters. He has blackmail on judges, senators, and FBI brass going back decades. Every time we get close, evidence vanishes, witnesses flip, and warrants die. Frank's jaw locked, so he is untouchable. I didn't say that, just protected. We have been chasing them for 3 years with zero luck. Your daughter is just collateral damage, Mitchell said bluntly. I am sorry, Frank, but some battles you cannot win. Tell Jessica to sign his papers, take the settlement, and disappear. It is the only way she survives. That is not happening. Then she is already lost. Mitchell crushed his cigarette. There is one more thing. Mark has an assistant, Vanessa Cole. She is FBI undercover. Been inside for 18 months. Frank's blood turned to ice. She set up my daughter. That Thanksgiving dinner was a setup. Vanessa was tasked with getting close to Marcus to gather evidence. The assault on your daughter wasn't in the plan. Intel said Marcus was white-collar, not violent. Intel was wrong. Mitchell looked truly troubled. Look, Vanessa's operation is targeting Richard, not Marcus. Marcus is small time compared to his father. If we arrest Marcus now on domestic abuse, Richard vanishes. His lawyers get Marcus out in 48 hours and everyone walks. How long until you have Richard? 6 weeks. We are tracking a massive tech deal to Syria. Richard has to verify it himself. Jessica, does T have 6 weeks? Then help us speed it up. You have military channels, old contacts who don't T answer to the people Richard owns. Help us nail Richard and we nail Marcus. Your daughter gets justice. And if I don't, Mitchell met his eyes. Then your daughter stays locked up while Marcus gets permanent custody. Your call, Colonel. He walked away, melting into the night. Frank stood alone, weighing impossible choices. Help the FBI to save Jessica or fight alone and guarantee her ruin. His phone buzzed again, another unknown number. This text stopped his heart. Colonel Bishop, we need to talk tonight. Vanessa Cole. An address followed a different, even worse motel. He drove there, certain it was a trap. But he was a Marine. Marines charge into the fire. Vanessa sat on the bed in that same Thanksgiving dress, makeup a mess. She looked small, harmless, almost human. Frank kept his hand on his hidden pistol. Give me one good reason not to end you for what you did to my girl. Because I can save her, Vanessa whispered. Because I saw what Marcus did, and it was never the plan. Because I am FBI. If you kill me, Jessica loses her only shot. She flashed her badge. Special Agent Vanessa Cole, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Call this number. Ask for Assistant Director Warren. Check me out. Frank made the call. It was legit. He hung up but stayed ready. You framed her. I got close to Marcus. That was the mission. The dinner was supposed to go differently. I was meant to start a fight, make Marcus show his true colors, not break her leg and lock her in a ward. She lost custody. I know, Vanessa's voice broke. I am sorry, but Marcus is just a pawn. Richard Hartford is the real target. Arms dealer, human trafficker, money launderer. His network hits 40 countries. If we take down Marcus now, Richard vanishes and our whole case dies. Jessica does not have 6 weeks. Then we speed it up. You have military buddies. Richard cannot touch them. Help me gather intel faster. We hit them both. Jessica gets her life back. And if I refuse? Vanessa's eyes turned cold. Then your daughter rots in that ward while Marcus raises Lily with me playing mommy. He will divorce her, marry me for the image, and your daughter will die in that ward. They will call it suicide. Legally, quietly. The threat was bone-chilling. Help or lose everything. Frank wanted to shatter the wall, but rage would not save Jessica. What do you need? Vanessa opened her laptop. Richard has a vault at his Connecticut estate. Files on everyone he owns, judges, politicians, the works. We grab those, we burn his kingdom down. But the security? I cannot bypass it alone. When? This Saturday, Marcus hosts his massive post-Thanksgiving gala. 200 guests. Security will be stretched. Frank locked eyes with Vanessa, the woman who destroyed his daughter for a case and made a pact he knew he would regret. I am in. But if anything happens to Jessica, if this turns south and she gets hurt again, you won't need to worry about the law. Vanessa nodded. Fair enough. They shook hands like enemies signing a truce. Outside, city traffic roared, millions of people completely oblivious that in a grimy motel room, 2 people were plotting a heist to save Jessica Hartford or destroy her for good. Frank prayed he was doing the right thing. Jessica spent 7 days in the psych ward. A week of group therapy where she played the part while planning her escape. 7 days of heavy meds that killed the pain but fogged her brain. A week watching her leg heal at a jagged angle because Marcus blocked the surgery. Once they finally released her, Frank was waiting. Neither spoke on the drive. Jessica stared at the blur of the city, feeling like a ghost. Frank's knuckles were bone white on the wheel. Where are we going? Jessica asked, her voice hollow. My sister S place. Margaret said you could stay there. I can't go to my Aunt S. Marcus thinks you are at a recovery clinic. I told the hospital that is where I took you. Another lie. Jessica was drowning in them. They pulled up to a quiet home in Brooklyn. Aunt Margaret stood in the doorway, older than Jessica remembered, her face etched with deep worry and something else, guilt. Jessica, sweetheart. Margaret pulled her into a careful, tender hug, avoiding the cast. Come inside. We need to talk. Frank's face went dark. Maggie, don't. She deserves the truth, Frank. You should have told her years ago. Told me what? Jessica limped inside, the pain making her voice sharp. Margaret led them to the living room and pulled a worn folder from a drawer. Inside were papers Jessica had never seen. Death certificates, medical reports, a police report. Your mother, Margaret said softly. She did not die in a car crash. The truth did not sink in at first. Jessica stared at Frank, waiting for him to correct his sister, but Frank's face had gone ghostly white. He could not even look at her. What? Jessica whispered. Margaret handed her the certificate. Cause of death, suicide, alcohol and pills. Your father's drinking, Margaret added, her voice trembling. Susan could not take it anymore. She tried everything to save him, but people have to want to change. Frank was not ready, so Jessica could not breathe. Her mother's suicide because of Frank? Is this true, she asked. Frank nodded, tears tracking through the deep lines on his face. I was going to tell you once I got sober. I swear. You killed her, Jessica hissed. The words hit like a punch. Your drinking killed her. And God help me, I married the same kind of monster. Marcus, you made me believe this was normal. Jessica, get out. You are just like him. You lie. You destroy. Get out of my life. Please, let me explain. There is nothing to explain. Frank stumbled back, crushed by his daughter's rage. Margaret reached for him, but he brushed her off and walked out. Jessica collapsed on the couch, sobbing until she felt she might snap. Her mother, her father, Marcus, everyone she trusted had betrayed her. The next morning brought a fresh nightmare. Jessica tried to use her card at the ATM. Account closed. The screen flashed. She tried another, declined. Panic surged. She called the bank, her hands shaking through the automated menus. Mrs. Hartford, the rep said, your husband moved all joint assets to offshore accounts yesterday. Per the prenup you signed, he has total control during your mental incapacity. Your hospital stay triggered that clause. That cannot be legal. I am sorry, ma'am. You will need to speak with an attorney. Jessica hung up and checked her wallet. $53. That was all. She called Diane Morris, her best friend and a divorce lawyer. Diane, I need help. I need a lawyer. Diane's voice sounded thick, like she had been crying. Jess, I am so sorry. I showed up at the emergency custody hearing, but Marcus had 3 big firms. They buried me in motions. The judge gave him temporary full custody. You are unfit pending clearance. The penthouse is in Richard Hartford's name, always was. You were never on the lease. And the prenup? It is ironclad. You signed it all away. Jessica remembered signing it 5 years ago. Marcus's lawyers called it standard procedure. She was so in love, so trusting, she never read it. Help me fight this, she begged. I will, but my firm needs a $50,000 retainer for cases like the Hartfords. Without that, I have $53. Silence hung on the line. I am sorry, Jess. The final blow came that afternoon. Social services called. They arranged a supervised visit with Lily. 1 hour. Jessica could see her daughter for just 1 hour. She arrived on crutches, her leg throbbing, her heart racing with desperate hope. A worker led her to a bright room filled with toys. Lily was playing with a new doll, expensive and pristine. Nothing like the well-loved toys Jessica chose. Lily? Jessica's voice shook. Baby, it is Mommy. The girl looked up, confused. Who is that lady? Jessica's heart shattered. Lily, sweetheart, it is Mommy. Do you not remember? The worker tried to intervene. Lily, this is your mother. Mommy? My mommy is at home with Daddy and Nessa. Nessa? Jessica whispered. The door opened. Marcus stood there like he stepped out of a magazine ad. Concerned father, devoted husband, all for show. Sorry to interrupt, he said smoothly. Lily was asking for me. Lily ran to him instantly. Daddy, I want to go home. Marcus scooped her up, kissing her head while locking eyes with Jessica. The doctor said this might happen, he said, his voice dripping with fake sympathy. Toddlers forget when routines break. Maybe with time. He leaned in, whispering so only she could hear. She calls Vanessa Mama now. You were forgotten in 9 days. Sign the papers. Let me go. I will give you monthly visits. Never. Then you will never see her again. The worker hurried them out, citing Lily's anxiety. Jessica watched through the glass as her daughter skipped to his car. Holding Vanessa's hand, looking happy like Jessica never existed. She collapsed on the floor. The tears finally stopped. 8 months pregnant, a broken leg, no money, no home, no daughter. Jessica sat on a bench in Queens that night, rain soaking her clothes. She walked from the station with nowhere to go. In her pocket was a bottle of pills from Margaret's cabinet. The East River looked dark and endless. Maybe Mitchell was right. Maybe some battles just cannot be won. Her phone rang. Frank. She almost ignored it, but muscle memory made her answer. Jesse? Frank's voice was slurred. Something is wrong. I am at the emergency room. I drank. I am sorry. So sorry. With those words, Jessica realized she had a choice. Join her mother in giving up or fight. She looked at the pills and threw them into the river. Marines do not leave Marines behind. Frank said that once, even broken ones. Even if they failed each other. Even if the world was burning. Jessica stood up, hailed a cab with her last $20, and headed to the hospital. The battle was not over yet. The emergency room smelled of bleach and despair. She found Frank in a bay, hooked to an IV, his face hollow. An older man sat beside him, kind eyes, an AA medallion on his jacket. You must be Jessica, he said. I am Robert, your father's sponsor. He called me before he drank. That is growth, even if it hurts right now. Jessica collapsed into a chair. Every muscle ached, but seeing her father broken and ashamed hurt even worse. Frank opened his eyes. I failed you again, just like your mother. Yeah, Jessica said, shocked by her own honesty. You did. I drank because I could not fix this, because I am useless. You would be better off without me. Stop. Jessica's voice stayed firm. You drank because you are an alcoholic. Mom died from it. I have to live with the damage. We are broken people, Dad. A whole family of broken people. But maybe broken is fine if we are together. Frank reached for her hand. I do not know how to save you. Maybe I cannot. Maybe I have to save myself. She paused, letting that truth sink in. But I cannot do it alone. Marines do not leave Marines behind, Frank whispered, especially the ones that are hurting. They sat in silence, two survivors finally admitting they needed one another. The curtains rustled. Vanessa Cole stood there in her red dress. She looked like she had seen a ghost, exhausted and almost human. Get out, Jessica said flatly. I have a way to end this tonight. Frank sat up, despite the IV in his arm. We are done helping your mission. Vanessa pulled out a letter, time-stamped 2 hours ago. I resigned from the FBI. I am out. Why? Jessica asked. Because I watched your daughter call me mommy and I felt Vanessa's voice cracked nothing. No guilt. I liked it. I have been undercover so long, I forgot what real is. She met Jessica's eyes. You reminded me. Jessica studied her and saw something unexpected, genuine remorse. Richard Hartford has a vault, Vanessa continued. Physical files on everyone he controls. We get those files, we expose the network. Marcus goes down, Richard goes down, you get Lily back. How? Frank asked. Marcus is throwing his party Saturday. 200 guests. Security will be thin. I can get you on the catering staff, but you have to pretend to be strangers. Jessica looked at her cast. I can barely walk. Then you will have to sell it. Nobody spoke. Jessica surprised herself. I am in. Frank stared. Jess, I am done being a victim. We fight or we die. I am not ready to die yet. Vanessa nodded. Saturday, 6 p.m. The Hartford estate. Wear black. Be invisible. She left silently. Robert cleared his throat. That is the bravest thing I have heard, or the craziest. Probably both, Jessica agreed. They released Frank that morning with warnings he would likely ignore. Jessica helped him to her aunt's place. 2 days became a blur of planning. Vanessa sent floor plans, guard rotations, and passcodes. Frank drilled Jessica on how to move on crutches without being noticed, how to blend in, and how to think like a soldier. You were a war correspondent, Frank reminded her. You survived Fallujah. You can survive this. Fallujah was different. At least there, I knew the enemy. The enemy is the same everywhere, Frank said. People who think power lets them hurt others. Saturday arrived. Jessica wore black, a bun, and cheap glasses. She looked like one of 1,000 caterers in New York. Anonymous. Forgettable. Frank wore kitchen whites. His forged papers were perfect, thanks to the FBI. They drove to Connecticut in silence. The Hartford estate loomed like a movie set. A mansion, manicured lawns, money on every brick, 200 guests in evening wear. Jessica served champagne on crutches, playing the part of the recovering worker. Nobody looked twice. Rich people have a talent for ignoring the help. Frank worked in the kitchen, head down. Through hidden earpieces, they used Marine shorthand. Eyes on Richard. Second floor study. Copy that. Jessica moved through the crowd, seeing flashes of her old life. Marcus charmed senators while Vanessa played the devoted girlfriend. Upstairs, a nanny watched as Lily played with toys. Jessica's daughter didn't even recognize. Jessica fought the urge to break cover and grab her child. Focus, Frank whispered. Get the files, get her back. Then Richard Hartford appeared on the grand staircase. 68, silver-haired and powerful, everyone bowed like he was a king. Family, Richard's voice echoed, loyalty to the Hartford legacy. Jessica served champagne, close enough to overhear his pitch to a senator. Shipment clears customs Tuesday. Your confirmation makes it legal. My daughter's college fund? Moved to a Cayman account. Arms dealing discussed over drinks because these monsters felt untouchable. Vanessa faked a reaction, gasping for air, demanding her inhaler from upstairs. Security escorted her out, leaving the hall unguarded. Frank moved fast while Jessica watched behind a bookshelf. Code entered. The vault clicked open. Hundreds of folders, judges, congressmen, police chiefs. Everyone Richard owned, documented. Frank photographed everything with a button camera streaming to FBI servers. Then he found a folder labeled Jessica Hartford Leverage. Inside were photos from Iraq. Fake medical records, staged photos, psychiatric lies. They planned to destroy her for years. 45 seconds, Jessica whispered. Frank grabbed the folder and they bolted, meeting in a pantry, hearts pounding. Jessica stared at the files. The assault, the fake medical records, it was all there. We have the proof, she said. This goes to the FBI. No, it does not, Vanessa said from the door, a gun leveled at them. Frank lunged, but Vanessa was faster. Hands where I can see them, Colonel. I am 28 and trained by Mossad. You are 62 with arthritis. Jessica's world shattered. Another betrayal. I lied, Vanessa said. I am not FBI. I work for Richard. Always have. She showed a fake badge. You really think the feds let an agent get pregnant by a target? Frank's recording. Jessica started. Was it him, or did you spike his drink with vodka to trigger his relapse? Vanessa's smile was ice cold. You people are so easy to play. Feed you hope and watch you scramble. She spoke into her radio. Targets secured. Bring in Mr. Hartford. Richard entered with guards, looking bored. You should have signed the papers, dear, he told Jessica. Made this easier. The evidence was doomed, and through the door Jessica saw Lily wandering toward the noise. Daddy, I heard voices. Marcus scooped her up. Just some bad people, princess. Go back to Nanny. Lily saw Jessica. That is the sad lady from the hospital. No, sweetheart, that lady is sick. She thinks she is your mommy. Very sad. Lily looked at Jessica with pity. You should take medicine so you won't be sick. Marcus carried her away. Jessica realized they were going to die here. Vanessa would dump them in the woods, an unstable veteran and his daughter. Richard nodded. Make it look natural. Frank tried to bluff. I uploaded everything to a dead man's switch. No word from me in 2 hours, it goes live. Richard laughed. You are a grunt, not a spook. You do not think that way. Frank's silence proved him right. They were led outside at gunpoint into the woods. 200 yards from the house. This was the end. Execution, not justice. Jessica stumbled on her crutches. Just do it, she said. I am done, Jess. Don't, Frank pleaded. I lost her, Dad. What is the point? Vanessa stopped. The point is you do not quit. What? Frank turned. Vanessa lowered her gun. I said you do not quit. She pulled out a different badge. Real FBI. Everything I told Richard was a lie. I have been working with you the whole time. Behind them, the Hartford estate erupted not with fire, but with light. Helicopters circled. Tactical teams poured from the trees. FBI hostage rescue team. Breach, breach, breach! Vanessa shouted into her real radio. Go, go, go! Jessica stared at Frank, then at Vanessa. Your reactions had to be real, Vanessa explained fast. Richard smells a lie. We needed him to confess to our execution on the record. Agent Kate Williams appeared, leading the team. Colonel Bishop, your military contacts came through. The Department of Defense confirmed the arms dealing. We have it all. The raid was perfect. Richard was in cuffs. Marcus tried to bolt, but was tackled. Agent Williams handed Jessica an arrest warrant. Would you like the honors, Mrs. Hartford? Jessica limped to Marcus, who was furious. She read it clearly. Marcus Hartford, you are under arrest for conspiracy, domestic violence, child endangerment, and fraud. You will never get her back, Marcus snarled. Lily thinks you are crazy. Jessica slapped him hard. She slapped him again. That is for Lily. She walked away, never looking back. A nanny brought Lily out, crying. Jessica knelt slowly. Lily, it is okay. You are safe. Where is Daddy? Daddy has to go away for a while. Lily studied her face. Recognition flickered. You are the lady from my dreams. Jessica's tears finally fell. Yeah, baby, I am the lady from your dreams. Lily touched her face. You have sad eyes like me. Yeah, sweetheart, like you. As the feds loaded the Hartfords into cars, as Vanessa handled the evidence, as Frank hugged his family, Jessica felt a shift. She was not the victim anymore. She was a survivor. And survivors do not quit. 1 year later, Jessica sat in a Senate hearing room, facing a sea of cameras. Broadcasting live. The room was packed with victims and families ruined by Hartford technology. The senator leading the inquiry, a sharp woman from Massachusetts, studied her notes. Mrs. Hartford, or should I say Mrs. Bishop, since you reclaimed your name, thank you for testifying. This committee is investigating how Hartford security systems sold military-grade surveillance tech to sanctioned regimes. Can you describe your knowledge of these activities during your marriage? Jessica's hands were steady on the table. She had spent months in therapy, rehearsing this testimony so she wouldn't break. Senator, I knew my husband was cruel. I did not know he was a traitor. The words hit like bombs. Reporters typed fast. Please describe the events of November 23rd. Jessica breathed. My husband broke my leg because I confronted his mistress. While I was 7 months pregnant, in front of our daughter and my father. She paused, making every word land. But what he did to me is nothing compared to what his technology did overseas. Hartford surveillance tracks dissidents in Syria, Iran, and North Korea. People are dead because of what he sold. Marcus, defense attorney, a shark in a tailored suit, stood up. Miss Bishop, isn't it true you were hospitalized for psychiatric evaluation? Yes, Jessica said steadily. And you take anti-anxiety medication? Yes, after my husband assaulted me and had me committed to stop me from getting surgery for my broken leg. The lawyer tried another angle. But you attempted suicide in 2013, right? I had survivor's guilt after my press crew was killed by a bomb in Fallujah. 3 of my colleagues died. I got help. I survived. I am still standing. Jessica leaned forward. Can Marcus say the same? Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Marcus took the stand next. He played it perfectly. A broken man, childhood trauma. Angry, abusive father. The jury watched him, some feeling pity. I loved her, Marcus sobbed, his voice cracking. I never meant to hurt her. I am sick. I need help, not prison. Jessica watched this performance. The man she once loved, she felt nothing now. No rage, just a cold look at a predator trying one last lie. The prosecutor rose. Mr. Hartford, do you recognize this? A recording played. Marcus and Richard plotting Jessica's accident. When do we do it? Marcus asked. After the baby is born. Postpartum depression makes the perfect cover, Richard replied. What about the father? Drunk driving accident. Very believable. The courtroom erupted. His lawyer shouted, but the recording was legal and FBI warrant caught it all. Marcus turned pale. This is out of context. Context? The prosecutor snapped. You plan to murder your wife and call it suicide. That is not context. That is murder. The jury debated for 6 hours. Richard Hartford got 60 years for arms trafficking. Racketeering, conspiracy to commit murder. Marcus Hartford got 35 years for domestic abuse, illegal trade, and child endangerment. Jessica sat silent in the gallery, flanked by Frank and Diane. No cheers, no tears. Just justice finally served. Reporters swarmed outside like vultures. How do you feel? What is next? Will you write a book? Jessica stepped to the mic, looking them dead in the eye. I want every woman who has been silenced to know this. Your truth matters. No one has the right to steal your voice, your safety, or your dignity. You can stand up. You can fight back. I did, and I survived. The crowd erupted. Women wept. Jessica realized her pain had become something much bigger. It was hope. 2 years after that Thanksgiving, Jessica had built a life. Not the one she lost, but something real. She lived in a small house in Stamford, Connecticut. It was modest and safe, with a yard for Lily. Frank lived there too, raising Lily and Jessica's son, Frank Jr., named for the grandfather who saved them. Jessica returned to journalism, writing hard stories for the Washington Post. Her byline, Jessica Bishop, appeared on articles about domestic violence and corporate abuse. Her book, The War at Home, became a massive bestseller. The settlement from Hartford Asset totaled $12 million. Jessica kept enough to live on and donated the rest to a victims fund. But the victory left scars. Lily was 4, but had no memories before age 3. The trauma had wiped them clean. She had night terrors, saw a therapist, and flinched at deep male voices. Last week she asked, Mommy, why don't I have a daddy? Jessica had no answer. Jessica carried her own scars, too. A permanent limp from surgeries that came too late. Chronic pain flared whenever it rained. PTSD meant domestic violence triggered the same panic as war zones. She hadn't dated in 2 years. Trust felt impossible. Frank Jr. was a blessing, but bonding was hard. Her postpartum depression, tangled with PTSD, meant Frank Sr. handled the early nights. That guilt haunted her at 3 in the morning. Frank Sr. was over 1,000 days sober now, attending meetings, sponsoring other veterans. But his old bullet wound acted up, forcing him to use a cane. Some nights Jessica found him in the garage, drinking non-alcoholic beer and crying in the dark. I am not drinking, he would promise. I just miss feeling numb. Diane had left her own abusive partner, inspired by Jessica, but admitted, I lost 5 years I can never get back. Victory was real, but incomplete. Then, the third Thanksgiving, everything changed. Jessica's house filled with people who mattered. No acting, no social media fluff, just reality. Diane and her twins were there, along with Dr. Rachel Stevens, now a true friend. Even Vanessa Cole came, having earned Jessica respect. Frank told terrible dad jokes while cooking. Lily taught Frank Jr. how to stack blocks. Kids laughed with that pure, unself-conscious joy of feeling safe. Then, mid-dinner, Lily asked the question Jessica had been dreading. Mommy, where is Daddy? The table went silent. Jessica's hand shook as she reached for her glass. Frank intervened gently. Lily, your daddy made bad choices. He is not here. Is he dead? Lily asked with a child's brutal bluntness. Jessica forced herself to be honest. No, baby. He is alive, but he hurt people, so he cannot be with us. Did he hurt you? Yes. Lily processed this, then went back to her mac and cheese. Then I am glad he is not here. Adults exchanged looks. Children's resilience. It was heartbreaking and hopeful. After the kids were asleep, the doorbell rang. Certified mail. A letter from prison sent by Marcus Hartford. Jessica's hand trembled. Want me to burn it? Frank offered. No, I need to see what he has to say. She went to her room alone, Frank waiting downstairs. The letter was handwritten in Marcus's cold penmanship. Jessica, I think about that Thanksgiving every day. The sound your leg made. Lily screaming, your father's face. Prison therapy makes me confront the monster I am. My father's weapon. He molded me and I never learned to be anything else. I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve mercy. I am writing because our son will ask about me one day. Tell him his father was broken by a broken man. Tell him you were strong enough to break the cycle. Tell him you saved his life by leaving mine. I know sorry means nothing after destroying everything, but it is all I have left. I hope you are happy. Jessica read it twice. Then she took a pen and wrote on the back, I forgive you, not for you, not for me, for Lily and Frank Jr., so they can see that hate ends. She sealed the envelope, addressed it, then walked to the fireplace. You are not sending it? Frank asked. He does not need my forgiveness, Jessica said, watching the letter catch fire. I do. The paper curled into ash. Some secrets are just for us, she whispered. Frank put his arm around her. They watched the flames. Later, Jessica tucked the kids into bed. Tell me the princess story, Lily demanded. Once upon a time, there was a princess everyone thought needed rescuing, but she saved herself. Lily finished triumphantly. That is right, baby. And she learned something important. What? That being broken does not mean you are defeated. It means you are real, Lily asked. Was the princess you? Jessica kissed her forehead. The princess is you, sweetheart, and you are going to be okay. She found Frank doing dishes, humming an old hymn. You okay? He asked. Jessica looked around the modest home, at the photos on the walls, real moments, not performances at the safety they had carved out of ruins. Yeah, Dad. For the first time in years, I really am. They stood at the sink, father and daughter, two soldiers who survived separate wars to find peace. Through the window, the Manhattan skyline shimmered in the distance. Jessica did not look at it. She looked at her family. Outside, snow began to fall over Connecticut. Inside, Jessica finally understood that freedom was not about revenge or perfect endings. It was about choosing to keep living, keep loving, keep fighting. One day at a time. 5 years later, the courtroom felt different, smaller, state court, not federal. But the woman on the stand looked so familiar. The same terrified expression Jessica once wore, the same trembling hands, the same voice breaking as she testified about her husband's violence. Jessica sat in the gallery not as a witness but as an anchor. She had received a call from the prosecutor that morning. A woman is testifying today. She read your book. She asked you to be there. So Jessica showed up. Amanda, 32, two kids stumbled through her testimony. The defense lawyer was vicious, clawing at her credibility and calling her a liar. Amanda grew quiet, shrinking under the pressure. Then she caught sight of Jessica. Their eyes locked and the energy shifted. Amanda straightened her spine. Her voice turned steel. No, she told him firmly. That is not what happened. I am telling the truth. Twist my words all you want, but I lived it. An hour later, the judge ruled in her favor. Protective order granted. Full custody won. Outside, Amanda found Jessica on the steps. Thank you, she sobbed, tears flowing. I saw you and remembered your note. Survivors never quit. Jessica hugged her tight. You did the heavy lifting. You survived. The rest is just paperwork. They stood there, two women bound by the scars of survival. Jessica knew this was the real win. Not the court drama or the money. The win was right here, one survivor lifting another, shattering the cycle, proving the darkness failed. Jessica headed for her car. The afternoon sun hit the glass building across the street. Her reflection caught something impossible. Hundreds of women standing behind her. Some from her support group, others total strangers, all survivors, all united. A trick of the light? Maybe. Or maybe it was a hard truth. No survivor ever fights alone. Every woman who stands up clears the path for the next. Jessica smiled at the glass and kept moving. The cycle ends when we say it ends. And Jessica Bishop had finally decided.